things that touch, kind of like that little bit of oil in vinegar. And that's kind of a bad analogy because there's no such thing as a little bit of, or not oil. Oil, I was going to say vinegar in an open cut, like a little bit. But even a little bit is going to make you yelp, isn't it? But I called this live show, this podcast, What's My Good Cheer? Because it is about getting the job done. It is about resolving some of those issues, going back into the past sometimes and doing a little bit of that shadow work, doing it in little bites, little digestible bites, in a way that's comfortable. I hope you guys find it comfortable hanging out with me. It's always my intent that you enjoy my company when I come in and do these lives. But I do understand that we do heavy work, but we get it done, don't we? We get to have these understandings and realizations on topics sometimes that we don't want to touch on, right? And coming out of it, you understand that it's something that is going to serve you in the end. It serves me in the end. And one of those things is positivity, in making sure, because life isn't easy, isn't it? Quite often it's difficult, it's scary, it's frustrating, it's full of grief, it's full of physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. Hello, Tammy. Right? And you guys hear me say it all the time. We should be singing in the rain, right? We should be whistling while we work. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I don't just say it for the sake of saying it, I actually believe it, right? Lots of us don't have easy lives. Lots of times we're trying to forget about that past and move forward. And hey, I'm all about moving forward. I talk about moving forward all the time. But you know what? Sometimes we move forward and we've got those weights dragging behind us. It's like that phrase that you hear um, when you get into relationships and you bring along your luggage with you. You bring along all those past relationships that have hurt you and molded you into somebody that was created by somebody else, that you've lost yourself in a way, right? And it takes time and it takes understanding and it takes releasing those chains and those weights and buying new luggage and staying positive, finding the good cheer. You know, it's not hard, right? But we're so focused in what's going wrong that we don't really pay attention to what's going right. You guys hear me say lots of gratefuls all the time, right? And it took me a while to really understand why it's important for us to put out our gratefuls out there all the time. Maybe there's a religious or a spiritual connotation to it, but there's an actual lesson, and it is to make us be remembering, right? To make it so that we are aware that there are good things coming into our life. My first teacher in this lesson, and I've had a lot of teachers in this lesson. I'm very grateful that I have attracted into my life, for the most part, right? People who have actually lived this way, right? And maybe it was in my limited understanding, if any understanding at all, about being positive, right? I wasn't woke to any of these ideas until well into my 50s. I'm going to be 65 this year, right? But my first teacher in positivity was my father, right? And that recognition that things are not always going good, right? It's not technically always good cheer, right? It's not always a bowl of cherries, a bouquet of flowers, cotton candies, rainbows, and gravy on the mashed potatoes. Lots of times we are dealing with that pain, that frustration, that hairy, scary, that true worry that always at any moment feels like it just could take us, it could take us down. But that's the idea, to remember. And this is what the gratefulness is, in my understanding, is to remember that there are good things coming into our lives constantly. And like I said, my father was my first teacher. He was not necessarily giving me these lessons in order for me to learn them. Being highly sensitive, being empathic, paying attention, being hyper vigilant, and wanting to be close to what made me feel good. I naturally was magnetized, like truly, to my father. You might get to the point to even say that I was very codependent on my father. But he wasn't readily sitting me down and divvying out these lessons. It was in him being the example. And, I truly, right, never ever saw my father cry. I never did. And I always can tell, when things weren't going good, when he walked in the door with a 25-pound bag of rice after a really bad poker game, or he lost his car in a poker game. In those quiet moments when, us kids would run to his wallet to check to see if it was nice and fat, because if his wallet was nice and fat, that meant Saturday afternoon matinees. It would mean popcorn and candy and comic books, right? He loved his family. He loved his kids dearly. And he was always in a bright mood. And I knew often, being that person who would pick up things, right, that it wasn't always the case, right? So I would always try to be the good daughter, right? I wanted to be the good daughter, to make sure that my father was smiling. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Tammy. Right, you guys? We're talking about positivity, right? We're talking about positivity. And, I learned by my father's example. Like I said, he didn't divvy out those lessons. The only lessons he ever divvied out were his quotes. He loved quotes. But he gave each of us kids free choice to choose the directions, the understandings, right? The adventures, the experiences, the failures, and the choice whether to get up and try again, or, right, just to slack off and try something else. But it was in his nature. He was just naturally that kind, sweet, Very rarely, right? My dad never, ever, ever raised his voice at us kids. He tried really hard not to show the negative aspects of what was going on in his life. Like things could be totally falling apart, and us kids wouldn't even know. When his mother died, I think I was about, oh, I was 8 or 9 years old when his mother died. I didn't know that she had passed away. He grieved on his own, and I remember my mother taking us all, well, taking me off to the side and giving me heck because I wasn't being well behaved when my father was going through a terrible time. But I had no idea, right, of the situation that he was going in because he naturally hid that. And I say naturally because that was the person that he was. He wasn't purposely hiding it, it was just in his own understandings to just be grateful for what was good going on in his life, right? He was the example for me. And it makes sense that I found myself a man when I met my husband, that my husband was amazing, kind, sweet. Very rarely would I see him raise his voice unless he wanted to be a little bit of a, right? They're men, aren't they? They're that, right? They are like that. My father, he'd walk around with his pipe and his cigar. He liked to play that role of big shot, right? Being a gambler, he really appreciated people thinking that he was somebody. He always wore suits and ties, and he had that aura about him that just drew people in, and he could hold the crowd. He really truly could, but he was very much a quiet, contemplative, introverted man. He just loved just to be off on his own, whether it was out in the middle of the ocean for a few months or whether or not he was just sitting at home with his own family in his chair. But when he was out and about, he was the life of the party. And I guess that's where I get my extroverted off of him too. Because, I would have to say my father was an introverted extrovert. And being my father's daughter, I guess I picked that up. And, in some of those most important relationships in my life, I am drawn and magnetized to those kind of people, right? And not for the sake of you know keeping the positive in my life that everything is just a party and right cotton candy, sprinkles and rainbows, right? Because again, being sensitive, being right, that person who was just paying attention to everything I knew, right? Sometimes I didn't always pay attention because I was comfortable in those people who never showed their emotions, and that's on me because I should have been able to pick up on some of the cues that, those times that my father was really struggling, really, really sad. Like I knew when things were not going good. Like I said, he'd walk in the door with the 25-pound bag of rice, and I knew we were going to be eating rice for the next month until he got on top of his gambling debt, right? you know, I didn't pick up in the sadness when my grandmother passed away. But again, my father was, I don't know why I didn't pick it up. I think it was because I let my guard down around him because I trusted him, right? That he was somebody that I could truly be the person that I was without putting on airs, without, right, being hyper vigilant and looking for the cues of what's going right and what's going wrong. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened because, right, the end of my marriage took me by surprise because I had dropped down all my walls. I had just let everything go and let it play out because that trust was there, that safety was there with my husband, right? That when that happens, you're not looking to read into things because, well, I don't know. I it's allowing other people to live their lives the way they want to. Now, when we were talking about with right divvying out the understandings, and sometimes they're not comfortable, but we do them in small spoonfuls and we digest them in a way that makes it so that we can get rid of some of those chains, some of those anchors, some of that luggage that we tow around with us because life is so much better. It's like this idea of saying you're gratefuls when everything is heavy. When you say you're gratefuls, then it brings your focus to the things in your life that are going well, right? And that wasn't something that I recognized until I would have to say pretty recently, right? But as much as I can recognize the positive in people, whether it is genuine or whether I am so comfortable around these people that I'm not paying attention. And that, like I said, that's on me. But that only comes with the lessons, right? With the lessons, because otherwise I'm just going to depend and trust that if something is not going to go well with somebody I care for, like one of my amazing people who have been hanging out with me for so long that know me so well, right? That I can just be myself and I can just let go. That if they don't say anything, I'm not going to know. I'm not going to pick that up because I'm so comfortable with them, right? But over the course of time, I have been a little bit more aware. That's the whole idea in taking the lessons and understanding better, right? And even though I'm not as hyper vigilant as I used to, I take good care of myself. I watch who I'm hanging around. I use discernment in that movement quite often around people I care about, even not just people I don't know, not just people I know that I can't trust, but people that I care for because I recognize that they're in a bad state. And we talked about this yesterday that members of my family are just so pig-headed and stubborn, and I can take it and I've got this and I don't need anybody. And oh, by the way, this happened 6 months ago, but because we love them, right? That we let these things slow. And it is in that dance when you do know that something's going on, but you don't want to invade somebody's privacy because this is the way they want people to perceive them. Remember what I said that, my husband and my father, my husband was one of these, and my dad was like the Godfather, but a kind one. Right? That my sister, just as much as I did, picked up on traits and characteristics that came straight down the line. And as much as my father was that way, I'm going to assume that my grandfather was that way, and possibly his father. And, and then there's different traits on the other side of the family, right? And when we talk about epigenetics, these are just things that are passed down from one generation to another. So it kind of makes sense that that positivity and that, right, that introverted extrovert, because I love my time on my own, right? I don't want to be spending all my time looking to see who's coming at me or who's going to say what, or, right? I don't want to put somebody in an uncomfortable situation where I know something's wrong, but they just don't want to share it, right? So that having that time for myself, I am kind of free from that, right? And I kind of had this conversation a little bit with somebody. I was out and about today a little bit, right? And I bumped into somebody, and he's a religious man, right? So I talked to him a little bit about, what's going on in the world right now and how everybody's got problems, because I could tell he wasn't feeling good, that something is really getting down. But I don't want to delve into his problems, into his privacy, because if he's not opening up, there's a reason for that. But I sensed it, so I can come around about it in a different way to, at the very least, give an opportunity for him to open up if he wanted to, right? And I just said, this is just the way the world is going on right now, right? It's kind of like, he's a religious guy, so it's kind of like God is cleaning house right now, right? And all he wants us to do is want to be here, want to move forward, right? To be grateful, to kind of find things to smile about, to appreciate, because moving forward is difficult. And we live in a world right now in this big house cleaning. And the idea is to say, like, who wants to move forward, right? Right? Do you want to spend a couple of lifetimes as a big tree? You can do that if you want to. You don't have to come back and do this, right? But I want to see who wants to come back, right? I want to see that positive. I want to see that love for life. I want to see that gratefulness. I want to see those examples, that evidence that others can see, that others could appreciate, that others might say, oh, I want to follow that. I want to be like that, right? And he delved in. He really, really appreciated that conversation, but he still didn't open up to me. I still knew that something was wrong, but I could see the relief in his faith. And that's the idea, in his faith. Right? Because life is getting him down, right? And the idea is to throw those gratefulnesses out there, to show that appreciation for what life has to offer, even when it's difficult, even when it's painful, heartbreaking, full of grief and frustration and worry, right? And I see it in my own family in this moment, and because they're so, right? I thought to myself in that conversation that maybe, right, because they have their own perspectives when it comes to life, that maybe if I could have that conversation with them, that maybe that opportunity to open up would be there in having that discussion. My sister says I'm a little bit preachy, what I do calls for that little bit of preachiness. It does, right? And I recognize that. It's not my intent to preach. It isn't, but it's the way I do it. That's who I am, right? And I don't want to be sneaky about it because even though my sisters are very different from me, right? They're just as hyper vigilant. They can read into it. They know my dance, right? They know my dance just as much as I know their dance. But they also know that I am the example. And you guys hear it? We're just going to stop for a second. We're going to send some good cheer out there that they get to their destination and it's a false alarm. They can turn around and go back to the station. That's the first time I heard the fire trucks today. The police were at the building today, right? I don't know what for, but they were here today. But that was the first time I heard the sirens today. So that is a good sign, right? Yesterday they had such a busy day. Oh my goodness, I have no idea. Oh no, I did it once earlier this afternoon. I remember when I'm washing the dishes, I could hear them going off, and I remember wishing them good cheer. But yesterday they had such a busy, busy day, right? And what stressful jobs that they have. And they're going home to their families. And their families know, their children know, their wives know, or their husbands know, right? That their job is stressful and that they might have experienced something that is difficult to experience, and yet they're coming home and they're smiling, and we're gonna 3 times today sending out some good cheer. Get to your destination, be a false alarm, and turn around and go right back to the station. It's summertime, you guys. We're in the midst of a heat wave. We're going to get some wicked rain for the next few days, like thunderstorms. And you guys know I love my thunderstorms. I really do love the crazy weather. I find it to be truly exciting. You couldn't get me to go on a roller coaster or one of those scary rides at the exhibition, but I tell you, I could sit here all night with the thunder and the lightning going off right in front of my window. No problem. It's exciting for me, just as exciting as going to the exhibition, or right. I would never. I went on a roller coaster for the first time. I was about 10 years old. We lived by the exhibition. I had to be a certain height in order to get onto the roller coaster. I was waiting for it. I was so excited to get onto the roller coaster. This is in the 60s and the 70s, okay? And our roller coaster was a wood roller coaster. I remember my parents dragging us up to the exhibition, and we're from Vancouver, so the exhibition is all year. They have to call the Pacific National Exhibition, and they're there. They're like they have their land and their buildings, and you can go all the time. You just don't have to wait for the big one. I think it's in August and it goes for 2 weeks. And that's when they bring in all the shows and players and they make a big deal out of it. But like I said, you can go play the games and you can go ride on the roller coaster if you want any time of year. But the roller coaster was made of wood, like just wood, hammer and nail wood. I waited until I was tall enough to get on that roller coaster. And then I went on that roller coaster with my sister Tracy, and she was taller than I was, and she was a year and a half younger than I was too. And I swear it was the scariest experience I ever had in my entire life. I never went on the roller coaster ever again. There was a little ride in the kiddies, or the little kids when they're like 5 or 6 years old. I went on that one thinking if I practiced that I would manage to get on the big one. But as soon as our parents took us down to go watch the roller coaster go up in flames, and they didn't even tear it down. They just did repairs on it. And I said, never again. And I never went on the roller coaster ever again in my entire life. That's how much it affected me, right? Sometimes these scary experiences that we have in our life, it kind of shuts us down, right? After I saw Jaws, I never went into the ocean again. And I loved swimming out to the barges, right? Way out there just to see if I could get a ride back to the beach by a speedboat or something. I was like crazy kids too. And we were doing that by ourselves at 5, 6 years old, hopping a bus because the buses were free for the kids. And we'd take a bus down to Stanley Park and hang out at the beach all day long, spend our money, and then phone my dad at the taxi company to get a free ride in his cab to drive us home. Right? We were always supposed to save our bus fare, but or no, we never had bus fare. When we got older, we did that when we were older. That's what we did. We were probably in our teens at the beach when we phoned my dad and said, come and get us. Because we spent our money on candy or popcorn or something, or trying to get into the aquarium, right? Because you always had to pay extra money for the aquarium because it was like supporting the animals and stuff in the tickets. But the Stanley Park, absolutely amazing. If you ever go to Vancouver, go to Stanley Park. It's absolutely spectacular. It'll make Central Park look like the neighborhood park. It's that amazing. Um, yeah, so in that positivity, right? See, you saw what I did there. We just kind of switched it up a little bit just so we could just digest, right? But that's the idea, and maybe you got an anchor that pulls away, right? Because you have a little bit of understanding that there are things that we can do even if you're not an extrovert in any single way at all. I know lots of people who did not like to be around people that I would have to personally just open them up, but because I am introverted in that way myself, I'm good with quiet time. I'm good with not talking and just hanging out with each other. Right? This is friendship, is when you can appreciate the people that you surround yourself with. And I'm so grateful for the examples that I've had in my life, and it's not like bad things weren't happening to these people. And that's the thing, even in my own life, I'm always a positive person, right? But it's not like everything is cotton candy and rainbows. 100% there are always difficulties, but I tell you, I want to move forward. I want whoever or whatever to say, okay, Cindy gets a go at that, right? She gets to come back and try again, right? All these lessons that I've got in this moment, and truly, I don't believe that Cindy is coming back. But there are parts of me, I believe, because I believe in the epigenetics. I believe in the ancestry and what's passed down from one generation to the next. That I understand that if I'm doing this work right now, I'm doing this work for the next generations and the generations going forward. And those other parts of me that tagged along for the ride with me, that it won't be as difficult on them the next time around, right? It wasn't an easy ride, and I didn't make it so easy for them. If I had understood those other parts of me were kind of tagging along. And I think probably even not woke to any of these ideas, I knew something was hanging with me. I had a faith in something, right? I just didn't know what it was, right? And I'm not going to make that assumption right now as to what that is. I'm just going to appreciate and be grateful that I wasn't in it alone, that I had enough lessons around my belt, enough tools around my belt that I could recognize, right, the good things in life, and having free choice to be allowed to make mistakes, right? But also to be able to understand that in those mistakes was an opportunity to try again or to give up, right? Or to immerse myself in something that kind of made me feel better in the moment. And that's the idea, right? I just dragged all those chains, all those uh, anchors, right? All that baggage and luggage in my life. And I dragged that right into my adulthood, well into my adulthood. Better late than never. But even though I did drag all that into my life, I would have to say, because of the examples that I had in my life, and not to say there wasn't some bad examples, right? Because that luggage and those anchors and those dependent characteristics that I had, meaning the addictions that I had, that those wouldn't have been set in place unless I needed something to cope, to make me feel that in the moment everything is good, right? In the moment. The gambling saved my life. I believe that, right? You know, that payday loans in the moment saved my life, saved my butt greatly, right? Being positive that everything was going to be okay, even if in the moment it said something totally different, right? That in the moment, that even though I could tell that somebody else was struggling, that it wasn't my responsibility to pry that out of them, but I could be there, right? If they were willing and wanting to. And so that makes me feel better too, right? To understand that I'm not responsible for somebody else's problems, but I'm a great support system in that, because I had those great support systems in my own life. I had those examples in my life, right? And when you hear that phrase, right? You're responsible. Nobody's coming to save you, right? Well, never deny your own. Never deny your own. You can save yourself, right? Look around and see who those good examples are in your life, right? And I hope that you guys find me to be some good energy, that you can walk away and feel better by it, right? To feel better by it, because it is genuine, right? It doesn't mean that there isn't crappy stuff going on, but I'm not going to let it bring me down. I'm moving forward. I'm always moving forward. I love life. I do. I love this world. I'm looking forward to the hairy, scary storms. I don't know if they're going to start tonight. I know tomorrow afternoon for sure. Those thunderstorms are going to be wicked. Oh, yeah, thunderstorms all day tomorrow. And you guys know that when it's hot, those are the best thunderstorms ever. But yeah, it's not really, it's a little bit of spitting over the course of the night, but those storms are not gonna happen until tomorrow evening. It got pushed ahead a little bit. I was kind of looking forward to them happening tomorrow afternoon, but lots of rain, lots of, like, yeah, they're showing pictures of clouds, not with just the rain, but even the rain is in orange. There's thunderbolts and rain. Yeah, so it's going to be it's going to be something tomorrow. Here, I'll just show you. You can see little the rain is just going to be a great day. It's going to be a great day tomorrow, right? Something to look forward to, right? That's the idea. Just to appreciate the good. Lots of people don't like the thunderstorms, but to me, I like the thunderstorms. So I'm going to appreciate that good coming tomorrow, right? If I had looked at the Weather Channel, I would have thought it was going to start tonight. So I'd have something to look forward to tonight. That kind of got shot down, but that's okay, right? I still going to look forward to the thunderstorms tomorrow. And that's the idea, right? In the moment, we can always find something to appreciate, even when the crappy is going on, right? And there's a lot of crappy going on in this world. Did you guys hear that they let 5 people out of the hospital with Ebola? They got cured from the Ebola. They made it through. That's pretty exciting, you guys, right? It's not it's still bad. It's still sad. It's still scary. It's still an epidemic, but to understand that people are actually surviving it, right? And at the time that and they were at the time that they got diagnosed, there were 500 people. Now there's over 1,000 people who have got it, but there were only 500 people. So that means one out of every 100 people at the very least are getting through and managing. So yeah, so I was pretty excited to hear that news, right? But yeah, right. Let be grateful, be happy, right? Let God know, or whoever or whatever know that you are happy to be here, right? Show them in that attitude, right? Or her or it in that attitude that you are grateful to be here, that you can whistle in the rain. You could you could sing in the rain, whistle while you work, that it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, that you're just going to keep moving forward. It's all about the attitude, right? It's all about the attitude, because that's the example for each other, right? That makes it so that people want to be around you, right? Number one, that's a good one, isn't it? Right? That people appreciate when you're around, especially if you're somebody who's normally, you know, not having a lot of people in your life, right? Possibly you're somebody who likes to hang out on your own too. Maybe you're just not have those lessons under your belt that you know how to interact with people, and you want to interact with people, having that positive attitude, right? Humans are smart, a lot smarter than what people think. And when things aren't going good, right, we want to find that little bit of good out there, right? Because we know it will rub us good. And if it doesn't rub us good, right, there's a lesson in that. Not tonight, but there's definitely a lesson in that too, right? Because we shouldn't be aggravated by what's positive, what's meant to make us feel better, right? Whether it's helping us, right? Whether it's making us smile or laugh or appreciate life, right? And if that doesn't make you feel good, right? Really, you need this lesson even more than what you thought, right? Because it's noticed. Humans are smart, and positivity shouldn't rub people the wrong way. We know it does, right? That jealousy, that resentment, right? It does aggravate when we're not feeling good ourselves. But if you give it a shot, right, might make you feel a little bit better. Okay, I'm coming into the comments, you guys. I can see you guys all yapping there. Um, I like that. I'm happy that you're here with us, right? That positivity, sending good cheer, sending more good cheer. I love a good thunderstorm as well. Yeah, Kathy, I just love. Oh, and it just must be amazing for you to look out at the water and see big open sky. Right, we have lots of sky here in Winnipeg too, but when it's skyscrapers and stuff too, that kind of, the lights, you just don't get the same feelings as if you're looking out over the ocean at a crazy storm and watching those waves and the water stir. Oh, I see, I'm just imagining it right now, right? What it would look like looking out your front room or kitchen window and, right, appreciating all the rain. And the trees do need it, right? With the Nino happening this summer, the more rain that we can get, the better, right? Right? Keep the ground drenched, keep the trees drenched. Yeah, I can imagine the lightning is going to have a few strikes, and it is going to be super hot tomorrow, but it's going to be a lot of rain. So I think whatever, little forest fires start happening because of the storm, I think they'll get totally rained out. Like 50 centimeters, that's a lot of water. That's a lot of rain. Yeah. And Tammy loves the storms too, eh? Not so crazy that people get hurt, right? I like a good tornado. When I'm out in the countryside, I'm always looking for the whirly dust whirlies and the little tornadoes coming from the sky. I've only seen them hit the ground a couple of times, but they just disappear as fast as they hit the ground, right? I love those too, but not to the point where anybody is going to get hurt, right? But you can't control Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't answer to the human. We've learned that. We've got a handle on a lot of things in this day and age, but we still don't have the handle on the weather, because I was pretty certain that it said yesterday during the morning that rain was going to start. Now it's getting pushed ahead till 7 o'clock at night. Oh well. It'll still be fun. It'll be nighttime too, so it should be a pretty good light show. Okay, you guys. Oh, I love the winds too, Kathy. I love the breeze. Not on my bike. I don't like to go bike riding when it's windy and I've got a bike ride against the wind. But I do love being pushed by the wind. I remember the wind picking me up, literally picked me up and took me about 15 feet. I was in grade one and it was recess, and the wind was so wow, it was so crazy. And it was something that the whole playground at the school saw me get picked up by the wind and get right. I didn't hurt myself or anything when I hit the ground, and I think I only went about 3 feet off of the ground, but it took me about 15 feet, and then I came down. And then for like the rest of the recess, I was trying to get back up in the air along with every other single kid that saw me get taken away by the wind. right? It was pretty cool. I've been chasing that. I've been chasing that ever since. I don't want to be on the rooftop when that happens, though. But yeah, I do like the wind. Yes, I agree, Kathy. I don't like the high winds. Maybe gentle winds are okay sometimes, but dangerous high winds, no. Yeah, yeah. I like the crazy weather. um, um, oh, the trees. Yeah. Oh, you got lots of trees in your yard, Kathy? Yeah, right. Sending you some good cheers. We don't want to have any trees fall on your roof. That's for sure. I don't think of these things, right? These things don't consequences. Yeah. Consequences to me just means picking myself up and trying again. I learned a lesson in that one. Right? That's the way I look at it. But yeah, you reminded me about that. But again, like I said, it's not that the crazy weather. I want it to happen in a way that people get hurt by it, right? Um, I will pray that your tree will not fall down, Kathy. That is in your yard. Attitude is everything, especially good attitudes and positive ones, etc. Oh, I appreciate that. I do feel like I'm a very positive person. I think I've been that positive person. I think it's an impact thing. It's a pleasing rescuer kind of trait that we get while we're growing up, and it carries on into our adulthood. But like I said, when you have those examples in your life of positivity, even though I had the total opposite in my life too, right? It's who we decide is going to be our examples. And there were lessons in that too, right? I learned right and wrong, and I learned to be a good judge by that, right? Judging is another topic of conversation because it's part of hypervigilance, and it's something that becomes your prerogative, right? When you have enough tools around your belt, when you can feel things out properly, when you're in situations where you do have to look out for your safety or the safety of others. Judgment, I don't believe, is something that is a bad thing, right? Judgment, not being judgmental, I think was just set in place so that the bad guys can get away with what they need to get away with without anybody stepping in and saying, I saw that. Yeah. That's the way I feel about it, and that's the way I feel about it. It takes all kinds to make the world. It really does. And I understand that, you know, there are a lot of lessons out there about not being judgmental, but I can't say that's the world we live in now, because I believe our world is a lot better off right now today than it was, say, 1,000 years ago, even a couple of 100 years ago. Right? We haven't had a war, a real war, in so long now. And I think we're getting close to that point where that it's going to get shut down, because, right, whoever, whatever, wants us to show our positive sides, right? And in cleaning house, I don't think that there's going to be much choice in that, right? I don't think so. I think the gavel is coming down, right? And there's judgment in that. Okay, you guys. I think what we'll do is we'll grab a card. We'll go into it for a few minutes. If you don't know, I've got my own little deck here. Kathy, do you use your cards? Do you pull a card for yourself every once in a while and get a message for yourself? Let me know if it's working for you, right? I put some good mojo in those cards for you every time I pulled a card when we were on the camping trips. I put a lot of good mojo. I thought, oh my goodness, like, yeah, these cards. I hope there's a message every time. Like Kathy pulls a card that she can see that somehow it reflects in her life in some way, right? I pull a card for myself after the lives every time, right? Just to see if there was a little message for me to say, Cindy, you did a good job. Cindy, you gotta try a little bit harder tomorrow. Okay. I understand your point of view, Cindy, on the word judgmental and judging. You're right on with that. And that's the way I feel about it, right? I'm not one for turning the other cheek. I'm not aggressive. I am not tit for tat, but I'm not somebody who's gonna turn the other cheek. If there needs to be a lesson in that, I'm gonna let the person know that there's going to be a lesson. But I am respectful of people's privacy that way, and I will get the message if I put it out there and nobody wants to open up in that. I will respect that, right? And I'm not judgmental in that way. I'm just judgmental in a way of that safety for myself or the people that are surrounded in the vicinity of whatever needs to be watched. Right? Right? That's been going on since the beginning of time, right? When you're walking through a forest and some caveman jumps out with you with a club, right? And the Romans and the Vikings and the Persians going to war, the First World War, the Second World War, the Vietnam War, right? Croatian. Now we got the Iranian one. But has it been full blown? No, because I think, right, we as a small man have a say. We're paying attention, right? And we're holding the reins back, right? Donald Trump isn't getting to do everything that he wants to do because he knows that everybody's watching, right? And all hell will be uh, broken loose if he should make a wrong move in that, right? And that's that idea of just paying attention, right? Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's good to hear, Kathy. I appreciate that. And I hope, that there's some good lessons. Like I said, I pull after my lives, I always pull a single card for myself and it never fails. Okay, you guys, we're going to pull a card here. Might be prevalent to the conversation that we had in positivity. Wouldn't that be cool? Um, and but if not, we'll just go into something else for a couple of minutes, and that'll be that. Maybe I'll even title it "Positivity," despite whatever card I pull. Let's look for a real positive word today. Okay, you guys, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We were talking about balance yesterday, you guys. That would have been a good card to pull yesterday. Balance is the counterweight that makes everything manageable, right? Makes everything manageable. And that's the idea in the positivity, right? That's that balance when things aren't going well that we can recognize. So that was kind of worked out, I think, this word balance, because, positivity is definitely a counterweight that we should look at the positive, be grateful that those five people got cured in Ebola. Like Ebola, they got cured and they're out of the hospital now. That's absolutely just fantastic, right? that we recognize that even when things are not going well, in no matter what it is, in that balance of recognizing what good is going on in our life, right? That's the counterweight. That's what makes everything manageable. That makes it so that we want to take one more step forward, right? Today is not going to take me down, right? Because I am grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for those 5 people being out of the hospital after having Ebola. I can't even imagine, right? I'm grateful that Kathy came and hung out with us, me and Tammy tonight. That was really nice of you, Kathy. That's super appreciated. I understand, like, right? But every once in a while, when you pop in, it brings a smile. It brings that positivity to the live. It brings some company for Tammy, which is much appreciated too. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer, and we'll see you tomorrow.